So I'm going to set up. All right, so recording is set up. And Louisa, good to see you. Okay, so Debbie, why don't we get started with the opening prayers? I think your screen share has been enabled, so if you can do that, please.
Thank you.
Curtis, can you turn off your microphone, please?
Sorry about that.
Excuse me 1 minute. I'm having a little problem with my Adobe Acrobat here. There we are. So let's begin with taking a few aware breaths. Relax, release, bring your mind home. Assume your best meditation posture. Scan your body for any tension. Relax any places you find tension. Release any thoughts and concerns from the day. And bring your mind home to this time and place of study and practice together. Just resting spaciously. Knowing all thoughts to be the natural radiance of your mind. Let them rise and fall without suppressing them or following them. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and perfect Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience. May they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly I will establish them in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. And may they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have a small but august group tonight. So thank you all for coming. I know this is usually the most difficult month for getting people together, vacations and people visiting places and doing so like that. So but we will continue, and we will continue recording so people can make up by looking at the recordings, or they can ask questions later or something. So what I would like to begin with is the purification recitation on page 14. So John, can you read tonight?
Yeah.
Okay, if you will read on page 14, please, if you can read the entire mantra and everything, is that okay? Page 15 and 16, can you read to the end of 16, recite that? So John, can you read page 14, 15, and 16?
The Vajrasattva mantra 3 times
Yes.
or just once?
So we'll start 3 times. So we'll start at the beginning on page 14. If you'll read the mantra at the beginning and then read in the very small print there, the translation of the mantra.
Right.
And then the instructions that are on page 14 and 15. And then can you recite the mantra, the 100-syllable mantra on the bottom of page 15 and 16. And that gets repeated 3 times.
3 times, okay.
And we all join with him while our microphones are turned off, so that we are reciting this purification prayer ourselves. Okay, John, begin whenever you're ready, please.
So, natural liberation of habitual tendencies, purification. Om Ahum Bodhicitta Mahasukha Jnana Dhatu Om Rula Rula Hum Jo Hum. That one is just once?
3 times.
Okay. Om Ahum Bodhicitta Mahasukha Jnana Dhatu Om Rula Rula Hum Jo Hum. Om Ahum Bodhicitta Mahasukha Jnana Dhatu Om Rula Rula Hum Jo Hum. It is the unified intention of the body, speech, and mind of the 42 peaceful and 58 wrathful deities of the great Buddha field that it displays the wisdom that cuts through all ignorance to manifest their wisdom for the benefit of the enlightenment of all sentient beings. From the field of reality's expanse, uncreated and pure, within a celestial palace, which is a seminal point of light, pure, unceasing, and radiant, through the natural expressive power of one's own mind, uncontrived and empty, intrinsic awareness, radiant and empty, arises in the form of Vajrasattva, seated upon a bejeweled throne, adorned with lotus, sun, and moon cushions. The branch of the dedication of merit of the unsurpassed greater vehicle. By the power.
I think you
Wait,
missed
I'm
something.
sorry. The right hand holds a Vajra at the heart, symbolizing the union of awareness, of absolute wisdom and emptiness. The left hand supports a bell resting on the hip, symbolizing the union of wisdom, appearances, and emptiness. And the head is adorned with a garland of perfect Buddhas, representing the 5 enlightened families of those gone to bliss. Thus, Vajrasattva manifests in the form of the Buddha body of perfect resource, exquisitely adorned with silks and jewels, seated in the posture of royal ease with the right leg extended and the left drawn in. Radiating at the heart is a syllable hum surrounded by the 100-syllable mantra. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Bendrasattva Tenapa Tishatvido Me Bhava Suktokayo Me Bhava Sukchayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sarva Karma Sutsame Zitam Shri Yang Guru Hong Ahaha Ho Bhagavan Sarva Dadagata Bendra Mame Mutsa Benza Bhava Mahasamaya Sato Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Bendrasattva Tenapa Tishatvido Me Bhava Suktokayo Me Bhava Sukchayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sarva Karma Sutsame Zitam Shri Yang Guru Hong Ahaha Ho Bhagavan Sarva Dadagata Bentra Mami Mutsa Benza Mahasamaya Sato Om Benza Sato Samaya Manupalaya Benza Sato Tenopa Titadrito Me Bhava Sutukaya Me Bhava Supochaya Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayatsa Sarva Karma Sutsame Citam Shri Yang Guru Hong Ha Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Benza Mami Mutsa Benza Mahasamaya Sato Repeat as much as possible so that the 2 obscurations may be cleansed.
Okay, very good. Thank you, John. All right, so now we will turn to, I think it's page 103. This is where we left off last week. We were on day 6. So before I go there, does anybody have any questions or comment about anything that we've talked about up to this point, or about the mandalas that I sent to everybody? Were you able to print them, or did you receive them in the mail? Did you have any questions or comment about those as well?
I just wanted to share that one way I found to work with them this week that I hadn't before. I probably should have gotten a traffic ticket because I had this in the car with me. And as I would be driving around, if there was like a red traffic light or a green light or a yellow light, I'd kind of say, oh, the green, that's Samoga City, and try to remember, the different qualities and benefits and antidotes and wisdoms and skandhas and female Buddhas. I'm hopeless with the bodhisattvas, but I'm trying. And just seeing if I could get these to come a little more spontaneously to mind. I did it in some safe places too, but I thought I'd kind of take it off the cushion and walk it around in integration and see if that helped at all. So yeah, it's a project. I'm not there yet.
All right, very good. Yeah. But associating the colors, particularly with the emotions, with the wisdoms, with the Buddhas, I mean, that's what we're really trying to do. So if by, like Debbie is saying, if she's seeing a particular light somewhere, or being able to reference the symbolism. So that's certainly a good tech. It is a technique, let's put it that way.
Best done with your foot off the accelerator.
Yeah, indeed, yes. So I hope it's helpful. And, the past couple of weeks, we've been talking about, the symbolism, and I've asked everybody to take notes and to write things down. So now you can compare that with, what I put together, and maybe embellish what I put together even more than what I had, but you have, additional information, and it's the process of doing this yourself that really helps cement the remembrance of what all these things mean and so on. And it takes a while, to do this, but these are the first steps in being able to do that. And I would find myself spending, maybe a month or two, really thinking about these things, contemplating these things, and I would get off into something else, but then I would come back to it and I could recall where I left off very quickly and so on. So it's a circle. Keep working at it. And more of the symbolism comes to life in our in our experiences. Okay. So where we left off was in the middle of page 105, where we have been talking about the gatekeepers. So now you can see where the gatekeepers fit into this mandala. And if everybody's fine, you understand, what is happening here. And just it needs contemplation. Okay, so then we'll move on to the next part of this, where in the middle of page 105, it says now, in addition, the 6 emanational sages who are transcendent lords will also appear before you. Indrasaka, who is the sage of the gods, Vamasitra, who is the sage of the anti-gods, Sakyamuni, who is the sage of humans, Stur Simha, who is the sage of animals, Zvalamukha, who is the sage of the anguish spirits, and Dharma Raja, who is the sage of the hell beings. Accompanying the above array, Samantabhadra and Samantabhadri also arise before you in the form called Samantabhadra and consort in union, the coalescence, which is the progenitor of all the Buddhas, all the Buddha family, all the Buddhas, got my pages mixed up, all the Buddhas. These 42 assembled deities of the Buddha body of perfect resource will emanate from within your heart and then appear before you. Recognize them, for they have arisen from within your own pure vision. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu Kunchok Pema Dorje, these Buddha fields do not exist extraneously. They are the 5 aspects of your own heart, its 4 directions and center. Emanating now from within your own heart, they have arisen before you. These Buddha bodies have not arisen extraneously. They have spontaneously arisen atemporally from the natural expressive power of your own awareness. Therefore, recognize them as they are. So let's just go back a moment. And if we can go back to, let me see if I can just screen share. All right, can everybody see this on the screen? Yes? No?
Yes, I can see it.
All right, very good, thank you. Okay, so now I want to, so here's what we've been working with are the the mandala of the peaceful deities. So these are the 36 peaceful deities, and I know there's 42, so we'll get to the others as we progress along. But we see the different quadrants, we see the different colors, and we see all the representations. And then these identifiers here, this group of words here and here and here and here, kind of give a overall description of what the particular Buddhas and the gatekeepers and the bodhisattvas are, what they mean. So it should be helpful to us to be able to see that. So now these gatekeepers we talked about last week, and we talked about that they are these deities who are rescuing us by closing the door of our going further away from this mandala of the peaceful deities in the Bardo. And they are closing the door by refreshing our memories, if you will, that we are in this Bardo as a mental being and as a spiritual being here, and they are representing the powers of birth and of the activities and so on that are all mentioned here. So this helps us to stay in this Bardo of the peaceful deities, because this is where we would be enlightened. This is where we could become enlightened, in this group right here. If we manage to leave this and we go to the next level, we go to the next where we begin to manifest in these different realms, in the 6 human realms. So this is where the 6 sages appear to us. And we made reference to this in Buddhism 101 from time to time, but now we're going to talk about the real practicality of this. So that these 6 human realms, the hell realm, the God realm, the hungry ghost realm, the jealous God realm, the animal realm, and the human realm, these 6 realms, the 3 higher realms and the 3 lower realms, that we go to these realms when we leave, if we leave this mandala, and so now here we figuratively are in these realms, and these sages, these Buddha sages, are there to rescue us, to help us to be able to recognize the suffering that now we are vulnerable to in these 6 realms. So the 6 realms are we'll start at the bottom and work our way up. So the hell realms, where beings are going through unrelenting suffering of hellfires, of hot hells, of cold hells, and constantly dying through terrible means of of being stabbed to death, of being shot, of being drinking molten lead, of being cooked in oil, all these terrible things, being crushed by glaciers in the cold hells, all these terrible things. And we're going through these things because our karma was moving us in this direction. And we didn't have the wherewithal to be able to recognize that karma and to be able to apply the antidote for it. So the karmic winds, so to speak, have blown us into these hell realms. And so the Buddha here is Dharma Raja, the king of Dharma, who would be down here at the very bottom. And whoops. And Dharma Raja is holding in his one hand, he's holding cool water, like ice water. And then the other hand, he's holding a flame, a fire. So for those who are in the cold hells, the fire is there to warm them. For those who are in the hot hells, the cool water, the ice water, is there to help them. And for a moment, any being who takes the hand, so to speak, of the Buddha in that realm will receive that application of the cooling or the heat to be able to relieve them of their suffering for a moment, long enough for them to be able to recognize that they've caused this themselves and that they can exit this by following the Dharma, by following the Buddha. That the Buddha is there extending a hand, and the Buddha will continue to teach and lead them out of their particular realm. So of course, this is all symbolic. We shouldn't think of it as being so literal. And as we are developing our meditation practices, because that's what this is for, as we develop our meditation practices, we may find ourselves in meditation where we are being pulled out of our meditation by what we might refer to as these demons that are in these hells, that are in these lower realms, that are pulling us away from being able to concentrate, from being able to recite our prayers, from being able to visualize ourselves as Buddha and Bodhisattva and so on. So by visualizing the Buddha, Dharma Raja, and what he symbolizes gives us that help to be able to relieve ourselves of that suffering that we are experiencing as an ordinary human being who's trying simply to meditate. So as we begin to perfect that process, we're able to become the stable in that, and we carry that through our different meditation practices as we continue along and so on. And then ultimately, then when we pass and go into the Bardo, then we have that support of the Buddha to be able to help us if we start having those kinds of thoughts, that we immediately can rescue ourselves and return back to the peaceful deities to become enlightened. So the same thing would be true in the next level, would be the hungry ghost level. And here, let me just see, I want to, excuse me 1 second. I just wanted to blow this up so I could read this a little bit better. There we go. So here in this realm here is the Buddha sage Svalamukha. So this is the sage. The sage means a teacher. A sage is a great teacher. So here is Svalamukha in the realm of the hungry ghost. And the hungry ghost, we have said, is a miserable creature who is there because of their greed, that they cannot obtain enough, they cannot gather enough to satisfy their greediness and their miserliness. They don't want to share it and so on. So those beings, those hungry ghost beings, are symbolized by being very round and they have very short legs, very short arms, and they don't have any real mobility. They can't move about very easily, and they have very long necks and very small mouths. So they cannot eat enough or drink enough to satisfy their thirst or hunger. So that applies to also their intellectual needs and so on. So they're very unhappy, very miserable beings. And Svalamukha is holding a casket that has food in it, holding a box that has food in it in one hand, and then the other hand he's holding a little vase that has water in it. So he's able to satisfy those beings, the hungry ghost beings, for a moment with the food that he offers, with the water that he offers, so that they for a moment can have clarity as to why it is where they are, what brought them there, and how it is that they can exit this through applying the antidote that the Buddha Svalamukha will help them to recognize and to realize and to develop and so on like that. So again, this is for our meditation practice. You know, the thing that interrupts our meditation here might be our greediness, might be our miserable or our misery. So by recognizing that and then saying, okay, I can apply the wisdom of Svalamukha and help myself get back to my meditation, get back to where I want to be in this comprehension of my practice and so on. So of course, just saying, oh, I recognize the picture of Svalamukha, that's not going to do it. You know, the picture is there as a mnemonic, as a reminder, an instant reminder for us to see that image and say, oh, that represents this skillful means of being able to apply the wisdom and the skillful means to be able to relieve ourselves of this misery and so on. So in the weeks before, we talked about those antidotes and so on. So that's all in the other mandalas that we've been talking about. So to apply the wisdom of excuse me just a second here. No, the wisdom of equanimity. The wisdom of equanimity is the wisdom that Svalamukha is representing, is symbolic of. So you can apply this to what we've been talking about before. So then the next one would be in the lower realms would be the animal realm. And that would be here who these animal beings are suffering from their great ignorance of not recognizing who they are, where they are. They are suffering of being beaten and eaten by each other, animals eating other animals and so on, and caught in this complete ignorance. And we can say that, you know, for human beings, who are animals, this ignorance may manifest as delusions, you know, the things that we tell ourselves to rationalize our persona and so on. So here, the Buddha, who is Stursimha is holding a book. And so through this book, he is able to educate, to help these animal beings to recognize their suffering, the causes of their suffering, and how to relieve themselves of that suffering, to be able to return to the mandala of the peaceful deities and therefore be liberated. So as we are in our meditation state and these delusions arise up, these ignorances arise up and so on, thinking all kinds of different things that we don't have to be doing this, we could be doing something else, this is not important and so on, that Stursimha will be there to be able to say, okay, here is all the scripture, here is all the teachings, here are the books and so on that you have been introduced to, and you need to avail yourselves of their wisdom and skillful means and apply those so that you can exit this confusion, this animal realm that you are in. And so therefore, this confusion is alleviated by the all-pervading wisdom, by being able to recognize the all-pervading wisdom. So I know this is very, introductory at this point, but this would help you to do your research, to do your contemplation. So then in the three higher realms, so now we will come back to the human realm, but let's go to the God realm at the beginning or at the top. So the God realm here, these are beings who are in this realm and have great pride. They have great thinking that they are beyond all other beings and that they are worthy of being venerated and adored by other beings, and that they have no compassion for others. They have good wisdom, but they're unable to actualize their wisdom into compassion. So the wisdom and compassion go together. The wisdom is like the accumulated knowledge, if I can use that word very broadly, and the application of that knowledge is the compassion, is the skillful means, is the method by which we are practicing that wisdom. So these beings don't recognize that they don't have compassion. So the sage, the Buddha who is there, is Indrasaka, and Indrasaka is playing a guitar-like instrument, but it could be any instrument. And the point here is that through the artistry of this Buddha, who has had to suffer greatly to be able to master this instrument, both in technicality of being able to play, but also to be able to compose the music that they are able to play, speaks of great compassion that they have had to go through to develop that. And if you've ever, heard a particular piece of music or many pieces of music that maybe have driven you to the threshold or the actuality of tears because of the compassion that is being conveyed. And maybe it's just not a musical artist, but maybe it's a visual artist, someone who is showing great compassion through their work and so on, through their artwork, and that way, who evokes this compassion in the God beings, in the God realm. And so that they recognize that they are caught in this realm and that they can liberate themselves from this realm, go back to the peaceful deities and be liberated by the peaceful deities. So, so that's the God realm. In the demigod realm, or the wrong side there, and sometimes referred to as the anti-God realm, anti-God, or the jealous God realm, or the Azura realm, as it's called. The Azuras are the anti-gods that are in the Sanskrit language. So these beings are there who now have great skillful means, but have very poor wisdom. They have the ability to be able to convince many, many people to support them. And these might be political leaders, these might be business leaders, these might be military leaders, people of great importance who have great big roles in life, who, as I say, capture the imagination of many people who will follow them. But because they don't have wisdom, they may be following them to fall off of the proverbial cliff, so to speak. That what these jealous gods are doing are accumulating these things for their own aggrandizement, for their own benefit. They don't care about the people that are following them. They're caring about themselves. And these jealous gods are in conflict with each other because they want what the other gods have or the other demigods have. They want, if I've got 1 million people following me, well, I want their 1 million people, plus I want the other 1 million people of another one of these jealous gods. So they're in constant conflict. And more than that, they're in conflict with the gods, the Deva gods, because they really want to be adored in the same way that the gods are adored. Here, as the jealous gods, people may have some kind of respect for them or something like that. And because they seem to have this ability to be able to manipulate people's imaginations to, and give them their support. But the gods don't need anything from anybody, but yet they have all this adoration by people. And the jealous gods want that level of adoration. So they're in conflict with the gods. The gods don't even pay any attention to the jealous gods. They're not even aware of them. So, the jealous gods are in this conflict. So they have weapons of different types and so on. So the Buddha who is there is Vemasitra. In his one hand, he is holding a shield to protect himself or to offer protection to these jealous gods from the slings and arrows and weapons of the other jealous gods. So they've got these shields to protect themselves. And on the other hand, he has a wisdom sword, a flaming wisdom sword, to be able to cut through their delusions, to be able to cut through their confusions, to cut through their arrogance and so on. So one is to protect, the other is to cut through the things that are binding them there so that they can have a moment of lucidity, a moment of clarity, to be able to recognize what it is that, why they're there, and how it is that they can liberate themselves to go back to the peaceful mandala and be able to be liberated there. So now the last of the 6 sages is the Buddha Shakyamuni, our Buddha. This is the human realm, and the humans are suffering from old age and sickness, suffering from change, suffering from impermanence, not recognizing that they have a temporary life and being able to abide in a temporary life and be able to benefit from a temporary life, be able to, use our resources, the resources like the perfect Buddhas, to be able to become a Buddha. And so Buddha Shakyamuni is here to help us to do that. That's what Buddha Shakyamuni is doing. And in his hands, he is holding a bowl. And the bowl is holding the wisdom or the Dharma nectar, the Dharma nectar. So it's not literally being, drunk, like we would drink that nectar. We symbolically do that in some of our practices. But the point is that the Dharma is the nectar to be able to feed us and to be able to help us to understand who we are, why we are here, what our changes are, what changes we need to do, and so on. And Buddha Shakyamuni represents that. So, so as a human being, now remember that all these deities here are part of who we are. It's all part of the psychophysical drama of being a human being. So the embodiment of Shakyamuni is being able, he is offering us the gift. This is what Shakyamuni was able to do for human beings, was to bring them the gift of the realization of the cessation, of how to renounce this life, how to renounce material things, how to renounce power and so on. Not so much to annihilate it, but to be able to use it in a proper way, to be able to neutralize and be able to come to a point of one taste, to be able to come to a point of not being positive, of not being negative, but of being neutral. And if we're neutral, we have neutral karma, then we don't have to feel that we're going in one direction or another. We're very satisfied to stay exactly where we are, because where we are encompasses all of these other things, encompasses all the duality. And now we've made the duality, we've transcended the duality. So the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha are bringing all this to us, bringing us the skillful means to be able to harness all of this in our lifetime. This is the precious human life. So in our book, going back to the Petra text, here, if you look on page 106 and 107, you can see that on the sides of the page are pictures of the 6 sages. So to help you to remember that. And so does anybody have any questions or comments about the 6 sages, about this realm of going into the 6 human realms of the meditation, or of the gatekeepers, anything that we've been talking about?
I have a question, Lance.
Okay.
So I understand that they're kind of outside the gates, but still very much part of the peaceful deity mandala, extending compassion into these samsaric realms. They don't seem to be tied in the way other peaceful deities were directly to any particular 5 of the 5 families. Is that right? I mean, I read somewhere that they're all manifestations of Avalokiteshvara, but I don't remember where I read that, and don't know if you've heard that.
I don't know that.
But they're not tied. The colors that are mentioned in there, the colors of symbolically of their bodies, aren't Buddha family tied. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, just to give a visualization, and this is my visualization, it's not expressed here in the Bardo Thodol, but if you can imagine that there's this sphere that is the mandala of the peaceful deities that's at the heart center. And then there's this outer sphere that is the 6 human realms. And this is where those 6 sages would be. So as we have experienced the Bardo and the first 5 days, the peaceful deities, we've managed to get out of through the gatekeepers, but now we're into these 6 human realms, but now we realize that we're suffering, and here are those Buddhas to help us to reconnect, re-engage, and get deeper back into that inner sphere, which is the peaceful deities, the 36 peaceful deities, to become liberated. So that's my visualization. Anybody got a comment? Does anybody else have another way of thinking about this, visualizing this? I imagine that for most everybody, this is the first time you've heard these things. So the point, as we keep on stressing, is to meditate on this now. To take these things, have these papers in front of us, and we're just say, I'm going to sit here for a half an hour or whatever, and I'm going to put this together, take it apart, put it back together again in my intellectual way, and maybe have a an experience of transcendence where we just kind of rest in that. We see the love that is in this. We see the loving kindness. We see the compassion that is in this. We see the wisdom in this, and we begin to experience that. So this is all tools to help us to do that. Okay. So then I'm going to go back to page 106.
Can I say one other thing, Lance?
Sure.
Just that what really struck me about this as you were talking was I realized I really tend to think of samsara as separate, as outside of this mandala, but to see that where we are is not separate. We are part of this peaceful deity mandala. Really struck me. I hadn't thought of that before, because I go around feeling separate and limited and not part of all of that, and feel like I'm practicing to purify my awareness to be more aware of it. But this is saying, even in the depth of my confusion, I'm part of it.
Well, thank you very much for saying that. Yes, and that outer sphere that I spoke of, those 6 human realms, that would be samsara. That would be the name of, that symbolic name of what that is. It would be nirvana and samsara, because they both are exist as they do simultaneously. And it's a matter for us to recognize both. So yes, this is the samsaric existence. Okay, so let's continue on with reading the book, get further into this day number 6. So I'm in the middle of page 106 now. It says, "O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kunchok Pema Dorje, these Buddha bodies that you see before you are neither large nor small, but perfectly proportioned, and they are all adorned with their respective ornaments, costumes, colors, postures, thrones, and hand gestures. The array is made up of central couples of male and female deities, forming 5 distinct clusters, and each cluster of 5 is encircled by an aura of 5 colored lights. All the male bodhisattvas of the 5 enlightened families who accompany the male Buddhas, all the female bodhisattvas of the 5 enlightened families who accompany the female Buddhas, and the entire mandala will arise before you perfectly and simultaneously. So recognize them. They are your own meditational deities." So we've been through that. We've talked about that. You've seen the illustrations of those. You have those illustrations on each side of the text. And if you've got the book, you can see the plates that are there, of these images. The images are great in being able to help us to remember. But what we always have to remember is that these are symbolic, that they are not actualization of these deities and the way they actually appear, the way they would exist. It all exists within ourselves. And it's all being able to bring together our intellect and our spiritual mind together to be able to do this. So each of these deities are representing different facets of what all that means. So it's like this indestructible diamond that is our heart center. And we're looking at that, all the different facets of that indestructible diamond. So it shouldn't be taken so literally that this is what that Buddha looks like and all the Buddhas look like this. And it's not like that. They're just symbolic. What you have to understand is what they represent. Understand their wisdom. Understand their skillful means. That's what we need to understand. And these things help us to to do that, to organize that within our intellectual mind, and that opens up our heart, that reveals these different aspects and so on. We see the diamond, we see the facets of the diamond, figuratively, not literally. So these are our meditational deities. So during the time that we are human beings, and what practices do we do? What deity yoga practices do we do? Do we do Shenrezig? Do we do Manjushri? Do we do Amitabha? Do we Ascobia? We have a choice of all these different deities that we can practice. And the more that we practice them, the more that we become them. The more that we become Shenrezig, or the more that we become Manjushri, etc. So it's then through them that we realize all the other brothers and sisters are just like that particular deity and so on. So you begin to kind of build on that family aspect. That's where it's very helpful to do this and so on. So we say these are our meditational deities, so that when, we refer to this over and over again, so that when we're in the Bardo, when we die and we go into the Bardo, that we are charged with this energy that we have been building up during our lifetime, and that, the visualization of Manjushri or Avalokiteshvara or Amitabha is just, we're totally, the embodiment of that. So that's our meditational deity. So by meditating on the meditational deity, we're instantly liberated. When we're in meditation, when we're a normal human being, an ordinary human being in this Bardo of living, now we have the opportunity to be able to create that habitualization of that particular deity. So that's what we need to do when we do our practice. So if we say we have our Yidam deity, the Yidam deity is our meditational deity, is our tutelary deity, the one who is teaching us what it is to be a deity, what it is to be a bodhisattva, or what it is to be a Buddha. We're learning from being them by doing the practices over and over, visualizing ourselves as being that deity with our body, our speech, by reciting their mantras and so on, and by the activities, by the things that we do over and over and over again. So that when we're in meditation, and let's say, we go through a whole progression of getting to our meditation, all this contemplation, and we get to our meditation point where there's no thought, or what's more real is thought is coming, and thought comes and goes, but we're not paying attention to it. But then all of a sudden we start slipping, and now all of a sudden we start fixating on a thought. How do we liberate from that thought? We realize that's what we're doing, and then we bring in our meditational deity. So if my meditational deity, let's say, is Avalokiteshvara, I start reciting Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, Om Mani Padme Hum, until that thought just breaks that connection and just goes away. And that thought then moves away. If I didn't begin to invoke that mantra of Avalokiteshvara, I would have just kept following that thought until it just totally broke my meditation. And I lose the meditation. I'm back being an ordinary being without the benefit. And I have a sense of maybe some degree of failure or something like that, and we'll do that. It's part of the process. But when we are able to be so clear about trusting in the deity and trusting in the mantra and so on, we see it work and we see that thought going away. Now we have confidence, and now we can enter into any meditation and say, okay, thoughts are going to come. I may start chasing a thought, but I know how to liberate that thought too.
Lance,
Yes, sir.
this is probably a very pedestrian, maybe a naive question, but how does one choose a deity? How does one choose a deity?
By joining the teachings that the lamas give, by joining the empowerments that the deities give, by reading, studying, and practicing, and by giving yourself the opportunity to meet these different family members, so to speak. And then you find what resonates with you. You know, one might speak to you in a way that the others don't. You know, so you say, okay, I'm going to engage with this deity for some period of time and enjoy that. And then through that, that may lead me to yet another deity. You can have many of these deities. And so, so that's how you do it, by availing yourself of the opportunity to engage with these. And you're not going to find these things in books. You know, you won't find these texts anywhere else but in the shrine rooms that are being, you know, led by the lamas and so on. You know, we've made some things available to you, you know, as Western people and so on. And these are the, you know, the most fundamental of the deities and so on. But it's incumbent upon us to take the proper teachings, to be introduced to these deities properly and so on, the empowerments. And that's where we have to make our commitment to do that. You're not going to find these on the shelves of Barnes and Noble or Amazon or something like that. These are the texts that are only available through the empowerments and the Dharma centers. Yes, Tom.
Now you spoke of the taking empowerment. Now empowerments aren't just given at any time by the lamas. It seems as though that they have to figure that you're a proper vessel to receive these empowerments. And once you receive the empowerment, it's crucial that you practice it, not just keep receiving empowerment after empowerment after empowerment. Instead of collecting empowerments, you should try to focus on what 1, 2, 3 empowerments that you received. Or
well, that's right. And I said, you know, to take different empowerments and so on, but as you just pointed out, you would take one empowerment and you would practice that empowerment for some time before maybe engaging in another empowerment or something like that. You know, so yes, if you know, you know, it's said that if you know one Buddha, you know all the Buddhas. So, but, you know, from a practical point of view and from our Western minds and so on, we are very fickle and we want to satisfy all these different discursive thoughts that we have. So it's very easy for us to want to start accumulating these and, oh, I don't feel anything with this deity. Let me try this deity. Oh, I don't feel anything with this one either. Let me try this one and so on. But are we giving each one a full opportunity to manifest within ourselves? Are we really honoring the commitment that we make? Part of the empowerment, that what Tom was just saying, is that we make a commitment that we are going to do this practice. And we're going to do it on a daily basis. And we're really going to commit to doing that. So that's part of the process, is to make that kind of a commitment. Is that what you were referring to, Tom?
Yes, because I know in past that you have mentioned that, you know, we should try to take empowerment, and but we know not to take it so lightly. That it's a very sacred thing, that and we're not doing it for ourselves, but we're doing it to benefit others, and that's the main reason we're doing this, not for ourselves. But it seems like, you know, since COVID, it just the only empowerments there are right now are pretty much just, you know, what Garshan is giving online, or there's hardly anything in the shrine room. So
Yeah.
And to, like you said, to practice, these Yidam deities without the empowerment, it's like trying to catch air. It's very difficult. It's
Well, that's why we've been trying to do what we do. It may be a very limited basis. We do Thursday night, we do Medicine Buddha, and we try, like I said, you only need to know one Buddha and you know them all. So Medicine Buddha, if I can use the word, is maybe the most universal of the Buddhas, and there's no requirement for Medicine Buddha to come to the healing of any being. They don't have to be a Buddhist to do that, and so that's a beautiful part of Medicine Buddha, but Shen Raising and so on. So the point there is to find somebody, to find a Lama, to find a lay teacher who is at least holding these practices, however limited they may be, and taking advantage of those. And we have taken a very serious hit by not being able to receive the empowerments because of COVID. It's true, but there has been opportunities to kind of break through those limitations to some degree, better than not doing it.
You're absolutely right. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll just give a little short introduction. The empowerment begins with the teaching. So the Lama who is giving the empowerment, it's like an initiation. It's an introduction to that particular deity. So the Lama would be giving a history of the person who composed that particular practice. Somebody wrote that practice. So the Lama will give a history about that, and then will also give the story about that particular deity, who that deity is and so on, and the power that the deity has and so on like that. And then the Lama will bestow refuge, that we take refuge before we can take the empowerment. So we have to take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha, the three jewels. So that is an element of the empowerment. It may not be the refuge where we get a name, that particular refuge, that would be done, in another ceremony. But now we've done that. Now we're taking the empowerment as, what your Dharma name is, whatever that may be. And then after they do the empowerment, then they begin to talk about the actual empowerment, what the empowerment entails. And there's three major aspects. There's the crown empowerment, there's the speech empowerment, there's the heart empowerment. And the Lama will talk about that and so on. And you can take notes during all of this. And the Lama goes along pretty sprightly usually, and it's hard to capture it all. But nowadays we record these things. You can record it on your own with a little recorder or whatever. We record the things on Zoom, so there's ways to be able to go back and get these things and be able to remember all the little finer details. But it's in these details that are very important. So, and then we repeat, and then usually these empowerments would be on a cycle, that once a year, once every 2 years, once every 3 years, once every 6 months, something like that, these empowerments would be given so that you can get them over a period of time. You get them a number of times to reinforce what you first got, and so on like that. But as I said, you can record them and listen to it. So it's very important to take these empowerments, but then to study these empowerments and to comprehend these empowerments, to bring them in, ask questions of things you don't know, and to gain the experience of the empowerment to be able to practice the deity and to become the deity. That's what you're empowering. That's what you are being empowered to do, to practice the deity and to become the deity. And as Tom said earlier, about becoming a proper vessel. that it's important to purify ourselves. That's why we start with the purification process, prayer each time we do this, to make ourselves aware of our defilements, confess our defilements, and then say that we're not going to do these anymore, and with a heartfelt motivation. And then we're becoming we're setting that proper vessel to be able to receive the teachings and the empowerments. Anybody else got a question? All right, so all this had to do with the meditational deities. Who are the meditational deities? So I think, I've given some information about this, and these are the meditational deities. There's many more. We're about to meet some more, but these are the peaceful meditational deities that we've been exposing ourselves here in these first 6 days. So now we continue again on the middle of page 107. It says, "O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kunchok Pema Dorje, from the hearts of the male and female Buddhas of the 5 enlightened families, the light rays of the 4 pristine cognitions combined, very fine and clear, like a spider's web, will dawn before you, like the entwined light rays of the sun." So imagine, maybe I've used this analogy before, but imagine that we all have a flashlight and we're all in the same space together. And we take the flashlight and we all shine our flashlight on the same spot. And as each one of us adds our spotlight to that spotlight gets brighter and brighter and darker and richer in terms of more depth to the light that is there, because we're all taking our light rays, our flashlights, to do that. So each one of these deities has their light rays, and they're all converging within ourselves. This is all within ourselves. So this is what we're trying to recognize. We're trying to visualize this. These 4 pristine cognitions combined. So the pristine cognitions are the clear light of each of these deities. Each of these deities has a clear light, has a pristine cognition that we've been talking about. So, and now they're all coming together. It's that spotlight on the wall that I'm talking about. These deities are doing this. And we want that spotlight to be our heart. Very fine and clear, like a spider's web, will dawn before you like the entwined light rays of the sun. First, a sheet of radiant First, a sheet of radiant white light rays, bright and awesome, indicative of the pristine cognition of reality's expanse, will emanate from the heart of Varanchana and touch your heart. Above this sheet of light, a white seminal point resembling a mirror facing downwards will arise, emanating light rays, extremely radiant, bright and dazzling, adorned with 5 distinct seminal points of like nature, each of which in turn will be adorned by greater and lesser seminal points, forming an array with no center or horizon. So you got to really pull this apart and visualize every little phrase in here, every word in here. So first, a sheet of radiant white light rays, bright and awesome, indicative of the pristine cognition of reality's expanse, how big this is. So we got to go back and look at what we were talking about with Vajra Varanchana, and will touch your heart. And above this is a sheet of light, a seminal point resembling a mirror facing downward. So we visualize that there's a mirror that's facing downward like this, and light is coming from that. So all that light is coming down in these sheets of light. Resembling a mirror facing downwards will arise, emanating light rays, extremely radiant, bright, and dazzling, adorned with 5 distinct seminal points of light nature, each of which in turn will be adorned by greater and lesser seminal points, forming an array with no center horizon. So this is all the different Buddhas, all this light coming down. And this is what we talk about when we say there's going to be bright light, dazzling and bewildering and so on. And if we're not prepared for that, we're terrorized by this light. We cower away from it. But here we're learning to embrace this light. And we do this again through doing these practices over and over again while we're in this bardo of living, so that we become familiar with this process. Then second, a sheet of radiant blue light, indicative of the mirror-like pristine cognition, will emanate from the heart of Vajrasattva Ascobia. Above this, a turquoise bowl facing downwards. A radiant blue seminal point will arise, also adorned by an array of seminal and lesser points. So we're visualizing now a bowl from Vajrasattva Ascobia. So we can visualize that. So if we're visualizing this mandala, a three-dimensional mandala, but now coming from each of those three dimensions. So if I use this as an example, that here's white light coming from the center. White light. And here's blue light coming from the east, from Ascobia. And then there's going to be yellow light coming from Ratnasambhava from the south. And there's going to be red light coming from Amitabha from the west. And there's going to be green light coming from Amagog City, all coming from our heart center, within ourselves. All this is taking place within ourselves. And third, a sheet of radiant yellow light, indicative of the pristine cognition of sameness, will emanate from the heart of Ratnasambhava. Above this is a gold cup facing downwards. A radiant yellow seminal point will arise, also adorned by an array of greater and lesser seminal points. So here is where we can make an association again of the color light and the virtue or the activity. So here we're talking about with Ratnasambhava, the pristine cognition of sameness. With Ascobia, it was the pristine cognition, the mirror-like pristine cognition. With the white light, it was the awesome and indicative of the pristine cognition of reality's expanse. So now we're beginning to see these lights and then to make these associations with their Buddha nature, with that Buddha nature, which again are just parts of this diamond, this indestructible diamond that is within ourselves. So then page 109. Fourth, a sheet of radiant red light, indicative of the pristine cognition of discernment, will emanate from the heart of Amitabha. Above this, a coral bowl facing downwards. A radiant red seminal point will arise, extremely luminous and dazzling, resplendent with the luminosity of pristine cognition. It too will be adorned with 5 distinct seminal points of light nature, each of which in turn will also be adorned by greater and lesser seminal points, forming an array with no center or horizon. All these lights and seminal points will indeed arise and touch your heart. So don't try and get too much into the minutiae of these seminal points and so on, these first number of times that you do this. Just keep it, as broad as you can, but not try and get it too finite that you lose that breadth of the totality of what is being expressed here. There'll be time later on to really fine tune those visualizations. So don't try and do it all at one time now. Keep it general. Keep it general, but know that there is a tightening of the focus. So now the bottom part of page 109. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kunchok Pema Dorje. These radiances are arising out of the natural expressive power of your own awareness. A arising out of your own expressive power. You're trying to articulate what this is. This stuff is going on. It's incredible. It's beyond our being able to express it, but we're trying to express it. You know, it's our natural tendency to want to do that. They are not come from anywhere else. Therefore, do not be attached to them. Do not be afraid of them. Relax and rest in non-conceptual state. Abiding in the state, all the Buddha bodies and light rays will merge into you, and Buddhahood will then be attained. When we are in a practice and we go through all the stages of the meditation, and we get to the deity yoga part, and then we begin to have these recognitions. These lights begin to manifest, not with lights in our eyes. It's not lights that we see, but we begin to recognize these with our heart mind. And then this all begins to happen and so on. And if we try and analyze it, it just pulls us right back, because we're trying to say, because these things are manifestations of something that is non-conceptual. And as soon as we try conceptualizing it, you know, it pulls us back. So an analogy for me might be being a surfer and trying to ride the wave. You know, you go out on the ocean and you got your surfboard, and you just got to get on the surfboard and go with the flow. You go with the wave. And as soon as you start thinking about the mechanics of it all, you're lost, because you got to be in that moment of being the wave, of being the water. And as soon as you start thinking about it, something else happens that you weren't paying attention to that wipes you out. So the same thing is true with meditation. You know, as soon as you start thinking about the meditation, it pulls you out of it. You're trying to intellectualize that which cannot be intellectualized. You just have to ride, you just have to experience the meditation. And that takes practice. You know, the first times that we go through that, we're going to try and articulate, oh, here it is, I'm having the experience. I feel this way, I feel that way, I can't wait to tell everybody. You know, all these things, but you have to just let it flow. Just, you know, there's no thought. And then what happens after we do this a number of times, we just say, here it comes, and I'm just gone. And you don't realize it, that you've done that, until after some thought does bring you back. Then you realize, oh my goodness, I was doing that. I was meditating for some period of time. And maybe you look at a clock and maybe it felt like an hour, but it was, you know, 3 minutes or something. You know, there's all kinds of stories about that. But so, and then when you have that skill to be able to do that, then you also have the skill to be able to go back into the meditation. You can say, okay, this is the end of my meditation session. I'm going to do all the things that I need to do at the climax of this meditation. Or, you know, I want to go back into my meditation. I have more time. I want to do this. So I go back. It's like a feedback loop. And you say, okay, where did I leave off? What do I have to reconstruct? And then go through those stages to be able to get to that transcendent meditation point again. And you can do that. And you may go through that 2 times, 3 times, 4 times in a session. And then it gets to a point, you know, in your meditation practices, this isn't going to happen right away for most people, but that there's no climax. You are in the meditation, and there's no end to the meditation. Your eyes are wide open. You're sitting on a cushion, but you get up off the cushion and you go walking about and you go do things and so on like that. And there's no end to the meditation. This is what we talk about post-meditation. that we're taking the meditation with us when we get up off the cushion. Okay. Now page 110. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kunchokpe Medorje. During the above series, the green light indicative of the pristine cognition of accomplishment will not arise. The reason for this is that the natural expressive power of pristine cognition, which is your own intrinsic awareness, is not yet perfected. So last week I made a mistake, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, I made a mistake by bringing this together with another visualization. But this is the visualization here where these four deities are coming together, but the all-accomplishing wisdom of Amagog City has not been perfected yet. So what this is telling us is have patience, be humble. You're not there yet. Just because we've experienced this, it is a temporary experience. We haven't habituated it yet, and it takes a while to do that. It will come if we keep working at it, if we keep practicing and so on, it will come. But don't allow yourself the arrogance to say, oh, I've done it, I'm there. And it's definitely not something that you talk to other people about. It's something that you talk to your Lama about. It may be something that you talk to your closest Dharma brothers and sisters about. But not until after you've had a period of time to really contemplate what has happened within yourself. There's this being able to answer your own questions, being able to digest it in your own terms. If you keep running to get explanation from others, you're escaping your responsibility to embody this yourself. And you have to be willing to make the mistakes. You have to be willing to not get it all in order to get it all. I don't know if that makes any sense to you. But you have to be confident enough to say, okay, if I got this 10%, but if I go talking about that 10% to a lot of people, I'm getting their feedback and it's confusing me and so on. But if you hold that 10% and then you go back and you do your next session or your next week or something like that, and maybe you get another 5% more. And then you get another, and each time you do that, it's your accomplishment. It's not them telling you what to expect or what you didn't do right or something like that. You're not listening. They may have good intentions. You may want to share with them. But the point is, at this stage, you've got to be working on this on your own. Shut thy mouth. So the reason for this is the natural expressive power of pristine cognition, which is your own intrinsic awareness, is not yet perfected. So what is naturally yours, just your natural Buddha nature, is not perfected. Your awareness of that, your stabilization of that, there's still stuff floating around that hasn't been purified, that is still vulnerable. O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kunchok Pema Dorje, this array of luminosities that you are now experiencing is called the vision of the four pristine cognitions combined. It is also known as the hollow passageway of Vajrasattva. At this time, therefore, you should recall the oral instructions which your spiritual teacher formally introduced to you. So just to go back a sentence, remember I showed you the illustration of Vajrasattva, and there was a yogi who was sitting on the ground and he was looking up and he had the 5 Vajrasattvas, the 5 color Vajrasattvas. So it's Vajrasattva that we are channeling all this through. He's our vehicle to be able to, he's the lens, the pure lens that we are experiencing these 5 Buddha families, these 5 pristine cognitions. So now at this time, therefore, you should recall the oral instructions which your spiritual teacher formally introduced to you. If you successfully recall this former introduction, you will have confidence in the visions that you have already arisen, and you will recognize them just as there is instant recognition at the meeting of a mother and her son, or just as one instantly recognizes an old acquaintance the moment one sees them. Cutting through any doubt, you will recognize these radiances to be the natural manifestations of actual reality. Achieving confidence in this way, in the unchanging path of pure reality and sustaining a continuous meditative stability, you will dissolve into the Buddha body of great spontaneously present awareness and irreversibly attain Buddhahood in the Buddha body of perfect resource. So I think that section there is self-explanatory and just requires you reading it over and over again, word by word, phrase by phrase, line by line, until you make your own connections with it. There's not much I can expand on that. I've already talked about that. And remember that the Buddhahood and the perfect body of perfect resource, the Buddha body of perfect resource, is the Sambhogaya deities. That's what that is. And a perfect resource. A resource is a place that you can go, a thing that you can have there's a repository of stuff, information, merit, things that I can go to, all this perfect resource that I can call upon that is within me, within my heart center, within my brain, within my body, and actually all around me. All the phenomenal nature becomes the perfect resource. All this is a resource. We see all this as the same. The macrocosm and the microcosm become the same thing. So then the next paragraph is, O child of Buddha nature, Rikibu, Kunchok Pema Dorje. Together with the radiances of pristine cognition, the 6 dull lights indicative of the 6 classes of beings who are obscured by impure and bewildering perception will also arise simultaneously. So we haven't gotten past the 6 dull lights that are now continuing to try and pull us back into the human realms, to be born back in those 6 human realms. So, we're still vulnerable, in other words. So, there's many opportunities to become enlightened, to be liberated. And we're using that word interchangeably. To be liberated is to be enlightened. To be enlightened is to be liberated. But with every one of those opportunities, there still is a opportunity. There is a force that is trying to pull us back, pull us downward. So we're not out of the woods yet. So we have to be aware of that. So now is going to maybe explain a little bit how we can work with that. The 6 dull lights indicative of the 6 classes of beings who are obscured by impure and bewildering perception will also arise simultaneously. So here's key words: obscured by impure impure, and bewildering perception. So we have to be very aware, analytical of our process, of our mind, of our brain, of what is pure, what is impure, what is bewildering, and what is clear. What is diluted? What is clear? So the only way we can know that is, like everything else, through experience. So we have to allow ourselves that experience. And we do this all within our meditation sessions. We don't have to go someplace special. You know, it's just taking the time and the commitment to sort all this out and to allow ourselves to make the mistakes. But, you know, we're sitting here on a cushion. There are things that we can fix. They're not irreparable. That is to say, the dull white light of the gods, the dull red light of the anti-gods, the dull blue light of the humans, the dull green light of the animals, the dull yellow light of the anguished spirits, and the dull smoky light of the hells will arise alongside the radiances of the pure, pristine cognition. At that moment, do not seize upon or become attached to any of these lights. Relax and abide in a non-referential state. Relax and abide in a non-referential state. So we're aware of these, you know, tuggings at us, these temptations at us, but we're not going to follow them. We're not going to reference where they go, who they are. You know, we're just going to, you know, cut them off. We're not going to be, you know, examining them at this point. We're not going to give them any power at all. We're just going to, at this point, we can just stop. I'm not going to follow that. I'm not going there. Relax and abide in a non-referential state. We're not going to refer to them. For if you are fearful of the pure radiances of pristine cognition and become attached to the impure lights of cyclic existence with its 6 classes of beings, you will assume a body amongst one of the 6 realms and you will be debilitated, for there will be no immediate opportunity for escape from cyclic existence, this vast ocean of suffering. So we're in a dangerous territory here. You know, here it can be a slip that we follow this and we lose sight of the peaceful deities. We lose sight of the sages, and we're just pulled down and manifest as a being. We go right to being reborn again in one of the 6 realms, or a combination of the 6 realms. So we'll get to that, you know, how that works later on. So it's saying, you know, this is dangerous territory. So these lights here, as you see on page 111, are just, again, they're just symbolic. They're just characterizations. That here is this great field of this dark light. You know, you have this sense of this dark light, this dim light, this dull light, whatever color, whether it's red or it's blue or it's white or it's green, yellow, whatever. But then within that light is this bright light. And maybe we've turned our back on it because it's too bright if we look at it. So we just look at this comfortable light here that's all around us. But that's all it takes for us to be seduced by that dull light. So we have to turn around, so to speak, and we have to engage in that bright light. That's our salvation. That's our liberation. And we do that through practice. Don't expect that you're going to be able to do it totally on your own without any preparation for that. So then page 112. O child of Buddha nature, Ricky Boo, Kunchokpe Madorje. If you are one who has not been introduced to the oral instructions of a spiritual teacher, you will be frightened and overwhelmed by these Buddha bodies and the radiances of pure, pristine cognition just described. And you will feel attachment towards the dull lights of impure cyclic existence. Do not do this. Be devoted to the bright and dazzling radiances of the pure, pristine cognition. Be full of devotion and think, the light rays of pristine cognition, which are the compassion of those gone to bliss, the transcendent lords of the 5 enlightened families, have come to seize me with compassion. I take refuge in them. Do not be attached to the bewildering lights of the 6 classes of beings. Do not cling to them. Focus one-pointedly on the male and female Buddhas of the 5 enlightened families and recite the following aspirational prayer. So recite with me with this, please. We'll recite this 3 times. So I'm on page 115, 113. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by the 5 virulent poisons, may the transcendent conquerors, the male Buddhas of the 5 enlightened families, draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the 4 pristine cognitions combined. May the 5 supreme female Buddhas, the purity of the expanse, support me from behind, and thus encircled may I be rescued from the light paths of the 6 impure classes of beings. Released from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state, may I be escorted to the 5 utterly supreme and pure Buddha fields. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by the 5 virulent poisons, may the transcendent conquerors, the male Buddhas of the 5 enlightened families, draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the 4 pristine cognitions combined. May the 5 supreme female Buddhas, the purity of the expanse, support me from behind, and thus encircled may I be rescued from the light paths of the 6 impure classes of beings. Released from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state, may I be escorted to the 5 utterly supreme and pure Buddha fields. Oh, as I roam in cyclic existence, driven by the 5 virulent poisons, may the transcendent conquerors, the male Buddhas of the 5 enlightened families, draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the 4 pristine cognitions combined. May the 5 supreme female Buddhas, the purity of the expanse, support me from behind, and thus encircled may I be rescued from the light paths of the 6 impure classes of beings. Released from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state, may I be escorted to the 5 utterly supreme and pure Buddha fields. So what that means is going back to the Bardo, back to the 5 Buddha families in the Bardo of reality, going back to the peaceful deities, going back into the heart. We've been circling around that samsara as these spiritual meditational beings that have no form, but they're at this dynamic of being pulled away and of being, wanting to go, have aspiration to want to be liberated. So that's it. Any questions or comments about that?
So Lance, in all the days leading up to this, we've been meditating on a particular Buddha family, and the liberation has been into the pure realm of that Buddha. But now in the last line, it's saying, may I be escorted to the 5 utterly supreme and pure Buddha fields. So is this now, just as you said earlier, Vajrasattva is is emanating all these 5 Buddha families.
It's
that
what
we're
I just
becoming.
said. It's what I just said. We were outside, we were in the samsaric potential, but then we're able to go back into the bardo of reality where the peaceful deities are inside the heart again. So there's the 5 Buddha families now. So which one do I go to? It depends on which one I have an affinity for, which one I
Okay.
choose.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
So you're back in that heart center, you know. At that point that you recognize that you're 1 degree away from that. You're in that space around that. You're in that potential where the 6 sages will help. That's where the 6 sages will help. Understanding the 6 sages will help. They will lend you the hand to pull you back into the 5 Buddha families, into the enlightened, how does it say, the Buddha fields.
Last quick question. Reading this to an ordinary being that just passed away, could really this be any benefit to them? I mean, it's even for a practitioner, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of practice that you have to accumulate to even come close to this stage. I mean, I don't even think 99% of the ordinary beings that passed away would even get this far or would recognize any of this. So if we read this to an ordinary being that just passed, really, is it truly helpful?
I think there's a couple ways of saying yes to that. And that is, if you're really doing this in a heartfelt manner, which is what you should be doing, that you're expressing this with your heart. You know, the words are only mnemonics to make this heart connection with those beings that are in the bardo. And you're not doing it just for that one being, but you're doing it for all the beings that are in the bardo. And we're not discriminating between those beings. We're not discriminating with that person who passed, who we think may not be worthy of this. But what do we know? Is that a bodhisattva way? Oh, I'm not going to do it for him. He's not worthy of my attention. Or would the bodhisattva say, I don't know, but I don't care. Whatever I can do, I'm going to do everything I can for that being and all beings equally. I'm not going to make that distinction. That distinction is unworthy of me. And then there's the point of that it is strengthening your understanding of this whole process. It becomes a work in you become seeing the work in progress, the dynamic of how it is with doing this over and over again, now with a visualization. Maybe you're doing it from home. Maybe you're doing it at the home of the person who passed, and maybe there's a lama who is officiating and you're partaking of that. So it's strengthening your experience with that whole thing. So it's not just limited to that one person. It's not limited to just you, but it is for the benefit of all. It is bringing light to the darkness that samsara is composed of.
Thank you so much. Clarify.
We're light bringers. That's beautiful, Lance.
I'm sorry?
I said, we're light bringers. That's
Light
really
bringers.
beautiful.
Yeah, we're light bringers. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Yeah. Card number 9, the sage. He's holding the light. Anybody know the tarot? Okay. Card number 9 is the sage. He's holding a light. the teacher, where there's darkness all around. Here's the way. Okay, so I hope this helps, and the onus is to study, contemplate, practice, look at this. We're going to start day 7 next time. So with day 7, let me just see here. Day 7 are the hero awareness holders, the Vidyadhara. So everything that we've been focused on up to this point has been in the heart center. So next we're going to go to the throat center. Okay, so I think what we should do is go to our concluding daily prayers, page 207. Okay. So Louisa, will you read, please, page 207? Louisa, will you please read this whole prayer? The page 207 to 213. And then,
Okay.
and then Curtis, will you read 214 to the end, please? Okay. So Louisa, begin when you're ready. And everybody should follow along. You can read out loud, keep your microphones off, but at least follow along and contemplate the meaning of what's being recited. Thank you.
Aspirational prayer, which rescues from the dangerous pathways of the intermediate states. I bow down to the spiritual teachers, meditational deities, and Dinkinis. May I be guided on the path of their great love. Oh, as a Rome in cyclic existence, driven by the deep-seated bewilderment, may the spiritual teachers, holders of the oral lineages, draw me forward, leading me on the path of the radiant clear light, which is the undistracted study, reflection, and meditation. May the supreme consorts, the host of Dakinis, support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued by the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. Oh, as a Rome in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated delusion, may the transcendent Lord Varikana draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant light, which is the pristine cognition of reality's expanse. May the supreme consort, Akasa, Devi Visavari, support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. Oh, as a realm in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated aversion, may the transcendent Lord Vajramasada, Akashovya, draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant white light, which is the mirror-like pristine cognition. May the supreme consort, Buddha Lakana, support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. Oh, as a realm in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated pride, may the transcendent Lord Radhamashambhava draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant yellow light, which is the pristine cognition of sameness. May the Supreme Consort, Namaki, support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. Oh, as a realm in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated attachment, may the transcendent Lord Amitabha draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant red light, which is a pristine cognition of discernment. May the Supreme Consort, Vasini, support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. Oh, as a realm in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated envy, may the transcendent Lord Amakahashti draw me forward, leading me to on the path of radiant green light, which is a pristine cognition of accomplishment. May the Supreme Consort, Samaya Terra, support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. Oh, my page is mixed up. Hold on a minute.
On page 210.
Yes, I had it backwards here. Oh, as a realm in cyclic existence, driven by the five virulent poisons, may the transcendent conquerors, the male Buddhas, and the five enlightened families draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant rainbow light, which is the four pristine cognitions and combined. May the five supreme female Buddhas, the purity of the expanse, support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the light paths of the six impure classes of being and be escorted to the five utterly supreme and pure Buddha fields. Oh, as a realm in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated habitual tendencies, may the assembly of spiritual heroes and awareness holders draw me forward, leading me on the path of radiant multicolored light, which is convergent pristine cognition. May the Supreme Consorts, the host of Dakinis, support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. Gotta get these pages right. Okay. Oh, as a realm in cyclic existence, driven by deep-seated bewildering perceptions, may the assembly of blood-drinking wrathful deities draw me forward, leading me on the path of a radiant rainbow light, which is free of fear and terrifying perceptions. May the assembly of the Kodhesveni queens of the expanse support me from behind, and thus encircled, may I be rescued from the fearsome passageway of the intermediate state and be escorted to the level of an utterly perfect Buddha. Om Hum. May the fields of the 5 elements not arise as a hostile force. May I see them as the fields of 5 Buddhas. May the elements of space not arise as a hostile force. May I see them as the field of Blue Buddha. May the elements of water not arise as a hostile force. May I see them as a field of the white Buddha. May the elements of earth not arise as a hostile force. May I see them as a field of the yellow Buddha. May the elements of fire not arise as a hostile force. May I see them as a field of the red Buddha. May the elements of wind not arise as a hostile force. May I see them as a field of green Buddha. May the awesome sounds, lights, and rays not arise as a hostile force. May I see them as the infinite fields of the peaceful and wrathful deities. May the rainbow-colored elements not arise up as a hostile force. May I see them as the fields of the manifold Buddhas. May I recognize all sounds as my own sounds. May I recognize all lights as my own lights. May I recognize all rays as my own rays. May I spontaneously recognize the characteristics of the intermediate states. May the fields of the 3 Buddha bodies be manifested. Samaya.
Aspirational prayer, which protects from fear of the intermediate states. When my life's course is ended and I roam alone in the intermediate states, the loved ones of this world can no longer help me. So at this critical time, may the conquerors, the peaceful and wrathful deities, quickly release the power of their compassion, and may the deep darkness of my ignorance be dispelled. When I roam alone, separated from my loved ones, and myriad images of emptiness arise, naturally manifesting, may the Buddhas quickly release the power of their compassion, and may the fear of the awesome and terrifying intermediate states be annulled. When the 5 radiant lights of pristine cognition dawn, may I recognize them as my own nature, and without awe and without terror, and as the manifold forms of the peaceful and wrathful deities arise, may I be fearlessly confident and recognize the characteristics of the intermediate states. When I experience suffering as a result of negative past actions, may the great compassionate one dispel all such misery, and as the natural sound of reality reverberates like 1,000 peals of thunder, may all sounds be heard as the teachings of the greater vehicle. When I am driven on by past actions, unable to find a refuge, may the meditational deities dispel all such misery. And as I experience the suffering of habitual tendencies and past actions, may the meditative stabilities of inner radiance and bliss naturally arise. When I am miraculously born into the intermediate state of rebirth, may not be beguiled by the perverse prophecies of Mara. And as I freely arrive at every place that I think of, may the bewildering fear and terror generated by my negative past actions not arise. When the roars of savage wild beasts echo around me, may their cries be transformed into the sound of the sacred teachings, the 6 syllables, Om, Mani, Padme, Hum. And as I am engulfed by snow, rain, wind, and darkness, may I achieve the pure clairvoyance of radiant, pristine cognition. May sentient beings in the intermediate state, similar in kind to myself, be born into the higher realms, free from rivalry, and as severe, dissonant mental states generate insatiable hunger and thirst, may the afflictions of hunger, thirst, heat, and cold be annulled. When I see my future parents in union, may I perceive them as Mahakarunika and consort, and for the sake of others, being blessed with the power to choose a birthplace, may I achieve an exalted body, adorned with the auspicious major and minor marks. Once I have achieved birth in a supreme human form, May I act so as to swiftly liberate all who see and hear me. And may I not be influenced by my negative past actions, but multiply and immolate my past merits. Wherever I may be born, in whatever land it may be, may I quickly encounter the meditational deity of my past lives. Knowing from immediately after birth how to speak and walk, may I remember my past lives and attain the power of non-forgetfulness. May I easily come to master by study and reflection the manifold stages of learning, small, intermediate, and great. May the country into which I am born be auspicious, and may all sentient beings be blessed with happiness. O peaceful and wrathful conquerors, may I and all beings, may I and all others become entirely at one with you and come to resemble you in all your forms, your retinues, your lifespan, and your Buddha fields, and in every quality of your supreme auspicious marks. Through the compassion of Samantabhadra and the infinite peaceful and wrathful deities, by the power of the truth of pure reality, and by the blessing of the mantrants who practice one pointedly, may every wish of this aspirational prayer be fulfilled. Samaya, composed by the preceptor from Modhyana Padmakara, may this profound sacred teaching not be extinguished until all the worlds of cyclic existence have been emptied. This is the treasure test of Tulku Karma Lingpa. Mangala Sri Zwala Jambudeva Alankara Bhavantu. By the virtue of this Dharma work, may all sentient beings be freed from suffering and attain enlightenment. Sarvala Mangalam. May all beings and activities be auspicious for the benefit of the enlightenment of all sentient beings.
Om Mani Padme Hum Shri. 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 Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 Om Mani Padme Hum Shri. Thank you all very, very much. I look forward to seeing you all next week.
Thank you, Lance.
Thank you, Lance.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night,
for
everyone.
hanging in
Thank
there.
you so much.